Our goal in South Africa is to make this success, and that was our success of winning the African Cup of Nations in 1996, just 4 years after we had been readmitted into FIFA, just 4 years after the ending of or 2 years in fact, after the elections that ushered in President Mandela and our own liberation, our own decolonization in the country, that this success will happen not just then, but again and again and again. Because it has such power, that success. Football in our country has got this most incredible power to unite the nation, to inspire passion and pride, and to build hope for the future. This was symbolized even more potently in this last African Cup of Nations. Our team, our national team, Bafana, has not been doing so well. We had slumped to 86th in the world rankings from our highest level of 20. And we were a nation that was really not knowing where we were going. And during the African Cup of Nations, we got through to the quarterfinals. In the quarterfinals, because we had won the match before and drawn the match before that, we got the highest audience ratings of any sport, of any event ever on SuperSport, beating the Rugby World Cup finals, just for our quarterfinal match. SuperSport had never carried football before, or very rarely. And those ratings, we broke all of the audience rating records, and it just showed again the power and therefore the importance of us doing it correctly. And we say, and I say, to our countrymen when I give this presentation, just imagine that this success and how this success will change not only football, but our nation forever. So we set ourselves a goal. We've set ourselves two very specific goals. The overall goal is to achieve sustained international success for all our national teams. And we've set a very specific target. We believe that we should consistently be in the top 3 in Africa. It shouldn't be a question. And that we should consistently be in the top 20 in the world. Where we've come from and where we are now, and I'm not going to take you through that whole slide, but you will see that since 1992, and I've already mentioned this, we have gone from being 20th in the world to where we are now. But we've hosted a number of events. We've done a number of really good things. But if you look at our rankings in FIFA, from where we started in 1993 at 95, and the incredible success going up to 1996, where we were up to 19, and then we hung about there all the way through until 2002, and from then on we've had a massive decline, all the way down to 85 at the beginning of this year, just prior to the African Cup of Nations, where we've now gone back up to 60. So something clearly is wrong. There is something fundamentally wrong with what we have been doing in football. And our task, and my new task, is to try and fix this. And of course, many people have said, and this is one of our cartoonists, that this is an impossible quest. It's like the quest for the Holy Grail, or the fountain of youth, or the labors of Hercules. That was a coach we had turning Bafana around. And Hercules is saying, yo, bro, you've got a tough task there. And that's pretty much how he felt. So what we did was last year in January, after we had failed to qualify for the 2012 African Cup of Nations, after our under-23s had failed to qualify for the Olympics, our under-20 team had got knocked out in the group stages, we called a gathering of 200 technical experts, coaches from around the country and around the world. And I put that goal to the coaches. I said, what do we have to do to achieve that goal of being consistently in the top 3 in Africa and the top 20 in the world? What do we need to do over the next 10 years? And they spent 3 days, and at the end of that 3 days, they came up with 7 big things that we need to do. And we've now spent the last year, the whole year, in fact, until October, in actually fleshing that out into what we now call our technical master plan. And that technical master plan, when we looked at it and at the implications, when I looked at it as the CEO of the Football Association, we looked at the scope of what we had to do. I realized it was not going to happen unless there was going to be focus and funding. And so I asked in November, I asked my executive committee that we enable us to do this properly. We must set up a separate entity with business partners and government partners and football partners And we've set up the SAFA Development Agency, and as of January, I moved over to become CEO of that. And our task, our mandate, is to ensure the delivery of this technical master plan within the structures of SAFA over the next 10 years. The 7 big things we identified, and I'll rush through these quickly because I want to focus on one in particular which is relevant to this forum around infrastructure. But the 7 big things we said, we need firstly to develop and entrench a uniform South African national football philosophy. Every single coach that we've ever had at the national team level complains that there is no consistent style or structure or philosophy of play. And so when the players come into the national team, he has to create that from the beginning. And every new coach we get wants a different style, a different philosophy. So what we want to do, and we've already gone halfway down this route now, is to define a national football philosophy and ensure that that gets entrenched in all of our coaching instructions, right the way down to our youth coaching, so that kids are growing up and learning the style and philosophy that we want to play, that best suits the talent and the skills and the natural physique of the players. Secondly, we need to build a rich and, more importantly, a robust talent identification and development pipeline that starts at an under-13 level at local football association, and our goal for this year, end of this year, is to identify our top 1,000 under-13 and under-15 boys and girls, and to ensure that they are tested and put into formal development structures, so that by the time we hit under-17s in 2015, 2017, we will have a pool of players that we've been working with, 1,000 players that we've been working with over the last in the 4 years to come. We need to rebuild our competitions framework. It's collapsed at local football association level, and we need to do that by doing so on a foundation of club licensing and club development. We need to strengthen and build clubs. And here's one of the big things. In our research, we've identified that all successful football nations have a ratio of coaches to players of about 1 to 20. We've got 3 million registered players, more or less. We don't know the exact number because we only now are rolling out a centralized database. But we estimate 3 million players. And we've only since 1997 licensed 10,000 coaches. We need 150,000 coaches, which means that we have now embarked upon a plan starting this year to train 15 and license 15,000 coaches a year for the next 10 years. It's a massive task. And one that's going to take up a lot of time and energy. Number 6 is about upgrading football infrastructure, which is part of what this panel and the focus of this panel is about. When we go out of the major cities and we go into the urban townships or into the rural areas where so many millions of our people live, the football infrastructure there is appalling. The fields are terrible, the playing surfaces are rough, kids are playing on dirt tracks, on really poor surfaces. And we understand that we need to have a significant investment in football infrastructure if we're going to succeed, and into football administration. It's no use having great pitches and facilities without the proper administration to animate it and to make sure that it runs and works well. And then, of course, we need to do this on the backbone of technology. We've signed a cooperation agreement with the German Football Association. We're using the software that they've developed over the last 10 years, which is a full comprehensive, almost like a SAP for football, a fully comprehensive football administration system, and we've just begun that rollout. And then finally, we have to integrate all the insights of sports science to make sure that that development happens in a systematic and proper way. Those 7 things is, as I said, we've built the plan. My task is, the agency's task is to ensure that those get implemented within the structures of football. 4 big goals come out of that: transforming football, developing skills in a nation where we have a crisis of a lack of skills development, creating employment in a nation where we have a crisis, particularly in young people, of unemployment, and changing communities. Quickly, SAFA, we have 3 million players, approximately 20,000 clubs, 80,000 teams. Football is played in thousands of schools. We are structured in 311 local football associations, 52 regions, 9 provinces. 9 national teams. We are the largest membership organization in the country. And here's the thing, in order to achieve that success at the top of the pyramid, we have to make a massive investment into the base of the pyramid. There's a wonderful book, actually from an Indian economist, I think, The Power at the Base of the Pyramid. And really, football is exactly the same. If you do not invest into the base of the pyramid, you will never achieve the international success on a sustained basis that we desire and that every nation, particularly India, is desiring. And so it must include a whole range of things. I don't have time to go through all of those, but it must include social development. It must include messaging and empowering of women. It must include dealing and building safe communities, keeping kids off the streets, having leaders. And so in this program, we're going to be training administrators for our provinces, our regions, our local football associations, and the 20,000 clubs, referees and match officials, coaches, project managers, facilities managers, event managers. There's a whole range. Once you build your football industry, all of those other positions become critical areas for skills development and employment in the future. We believe that the implementation of this plan will lead to the direct creation of around 15,000 jobs in the country, which is a massive amount in an industry that does not employ enough people at the moment. We believe that through the skills and the development and the cooperation with government and the private sector, that we will be creating these employment opportunities. And fundamentally, that all of this leads to changing of communities. I believe that when we organize football properly at a local level, particularly among girls, we will double our participation levels. And the impact therefore of what we're doing will be doubled. We're going to train all of our coaches in their formal licensing. We're adding on an extra 2 days in their licensing program, where they will be formally trained as life skills educators, because they are the ones who are interfacing with these 3 million young people. And if we can train them as life skills educators, we can then utilize the power of that base to make incredible inroads in social issues such as HIV/AIDS, about gender issues, violence against women and children, and so on, using the power of these coaches, these life skills educators, interfacing with youth and changing communities. Very quickly on the infrastructure component. Since the World Cup in 2010, as part of our legacy program, we have already built 27 artificial pitches and change rooms in rural areas. We are currently raising funding to complete another 25. And we're converting these with government into regional sports hubs. We partner both with government and the private sector. You can see the change. And you can imagine the impact that a field and a facility like that has on a community, where they suddenly have a surface that they can play on, with clubhouses, change rooms,